Good morning and congratulations to Zen and Thomas and Julie. This is really a unique kind of meeting that is needed, as you said, to break the silos and to figure out how we educate people and collaborate and make things better. So the next 50 minutes, my colleague Steve Krichevsky and I will kind of take you through our thoughts and knowledge about what is aging. You know, we'll tell you that aging has biology. This biology can be targeted. We've done it in animals. We can do it in humans. It's going to take regulation, which we have dealt with, and it's going to be cost-saving, most important. And we'll touch upon every one of that. And the roadmap for this hour is that I'm going to start basically with a film that was developed by the Glenn Foundation and the American Federation of Aging Research. It's a 3.5 minute film. And it was shown to the House of Lords, and they got the message. So it's a very simple film. And then I'll go back and talk about the data that was maybe missing from the film and set up the stage to tell you how we're actually going to show that we can target aging. So I put here how to die young at a very old age as a holding title, and I'll tell you what we mean by that as those 50 minutes go by. So let's start with this film that will set up the stage for the rest.
For as long as there have been people, we have known how old you are can affect how healthy you are. But only now are we beginning to understand why. And how we can use that knowledge to give everyone a healthier old age. Because a better world for older people is a better world for everyone. The subject of aging is surrounded by myths that reflect our hopes and fears. Finding the truth is a challenge. This video won't tell you what to think, but it will tell you why scientists think the way they do, which is more important. The maximum number of years that the human body can survive hasn't changed much over history, but average life expectancy, the number of years that humans can on average expect to live, has dramatically increased. This means there are more old people. We've always known that as we age, certain changes occur. We get grey hair and wrinkled skin, for example. We also know that the older you get, the more likely you are to get sick. We tend to think of the effects of aging as separate from the diseases of aging, and of these diseases as separate from each other. But what if they were all part of the same process? We started to explore this idea when scientists first mutated single genes in mice, flies and worms. These creatures lived much longer because whatever we'd done made them much healthier. And the same processes are at work in us. Combined, these mechanisms and a few others act to keep us healthy, and problems occur as they start to fail. We know drugs already exist that target these pathways. These could help us discover new ways of improving health and treating conditions for which we can do little or nothing today. It is a startling example of how basic science could act as a bridge to better medicine. Of course, this bridge won't get built without spending the right amount of money in the right place. We're not currently doing that. We focus on treating the symptoms rather than researching the causes. With the predicted increase in health costs, this is only going to become more of a critical issue in the future. We need to use our growing knowledge about the biology of aging to increase health span, the amount of time we spend healthy in old age. If we can do this, then old age needn't be a struggle. Even without new drugs, the knowledge we gain from biological research can be used to improve prevention strategies, diet and exercise. Things which many people can use and benefit from. So as life expectancy increases, we can live those extra years happier in our good health. But should we fear success? What would a world with increased health span look like? For the first time, economists have tried to predict this. The results speak for themselves. Even with paying the entitlements due to older people, the US alone saves $4 trillion that can be spent on improving people's lives in other ways. Which is why we say, a better world for older people is a better world for everyone.
So that's a simple message for the House of Lord. Also, you notice the reader was British, and aging is spelled with E. There's lots of adjustment for this film. And so let me fill the gaps now. First of all, what are we afraid about aging? In our city, we have this guy, Woody Allen, and he says, I'm not afraid of dying. I just don't want to be there when it happens. But that's not what people are afraid of. People are afraid of getting sick and being sick for a long time and getting a treatment for this sickness. And then there's acceleration in how many people are getting a second disease and a third disease. So there are 3 diseases and 3 treatments and interaction with those treatments. And that's what we're doing today. And I think this is ridiculous from where we are in science. And that's not working so well anymore. So let me make this following point. This is the death from those diseases across aging. And let's take heart disease, okay? So heart disease, the risk of dying goes from 5 to 5,000 as we get old. Now you would say, no, hey, cholesterol is the major risk for heart disease. But no, cholesterol is a 3-fold risk for dying from heart disease. Aging is a 1,000-fold risk of heart disease. And then look what cancer. Cancer is a parallel line, and it's kind of the same magnitude, and so is diabetes, and so is Alzheimer. So when we came to the field and looked at those data, we said the only thing that makes sense is to target aging, because otherwise all we're exchanging one disease for another. And that's actually what's happening because of relatively success in cardiovascular disease and increasing success in cancer. So we get to Alzheimer's. But when you walk into the emergency room and you have a heart attack and you get a stent, the people who get stent, what happens to them in 2-3 years? They get diabetes, cancer, and Alzheimer because you treated the heart and not the aging process. And as Barry mentioned, the cardiologists are taking over the discussion many times. So this is what this graph tells us. Aging is the major risk for all those diseases. And unless we tackle that, we have really no chance for process. I should say this, that the genetic and environment of individual will determine which disease you'll get first. If you have a mother with diabetes and you're obese, you'll get diabetes first. So there are going to be specific genes and specific environmental things, but it doesn't matter. If you age relatively quickly, you'll get the next disease quickly also, and you'll accumulate those diseases. Now, Barry also mentioned it's amazing the similarity between diabetes risk and NASH risk, but it's true to everything. And it's true to everything, and it's depicted here in how we look at aging, and I'm not going to go into the biology, but but metabolism and inflammation and proteostasis are common to almost all those diseases we're going to talk about. And what we've done actually as a profession, what we've done so smartly, is rather to describe kind of the boring process of aging, we started looking at animal models that live long. And through that, we didn't learn everything we could still learn about aging, but we started getting hints of what are important pathways that we could manipulate. And I would tell you those 2 things that, without any doubt, that healthy lifespan, okay, not only longer lifespan, but healthy lifespan has been extended in numerous models. And that's really cool in aging that doesn't exist for cancer, for example, that aging is conserved in evolution. Mice also get skin problem and hair problem and cancers and everything that we get. And it's important because some of the drugs that we have will work on every model, like you saw yesterday with flies. So healthy lifespan has been extended in worms, in flies, in mice, in rats, in monkeys. And it's been extended by not only by genetics, by environment, and by drugs. And some of those drugs, as mentioned yesterday, are in human use. So I'll just give you an example of how advanced we are, because those things are discovered in labs, and some labs are replicating other labs. But the NIA has created this program, the intervention testing program, that basically if you have, by the way, if you have any idea, if you think you have something and you have some data to think that you have a drug that will actually target aging, you can call this organization, and if you're chosen, they'll take heterogeneous mice models, so not the mice that have the specific genetics of your own disease, but heterogeneous models that are not similar to each other, because it should work on any genetic background. They'll do male and female, and let me just say that male and female aging is different in some major ways. We're discovering it a little bit late, but we understand it better. It's a multi-site study, so there are 3 centers that are going to do the same study, one in San Antonio and one in Michigan and one in Maine. And they're going to look at the hypotheses and look at both health span and lifespan extension. And I'm giving you just this figure of 6 experiments. And by the way, there are 16 experiments, and 6 of them have worked so far. And let me just start here. This is rapamycin. We heard about it before. The blue are the placebo-treated mice, and the red are the drug, the rapamycin. There's graphs for females and males. And the error here indicates that this started late. And I think it's important to know that with our hypothesis, even if you start the drug late, you have an effect. And some drugs are more effective when you start them late, for example, senolytic drugs. But what you see here are significant curves for 2 anti-inflammatory pathway, acarbose, which is another anti-diabetic drug. Male lives substantially longer. 17-alpha estradiol in male, rapamycin, and the longest living mice are the ones who are on a combination of rapamycin and metformin, and life extension is in the order of 24%. Imagine if you could add 24% to 80-year-old, which is our average age of death. But this is more not to take you through the details, but to show you there is a way for us as a profession to do the preclinical studies in a way where we'll be sure about those results. Let me give you another model that is of my interest, and the Kahn family is an example of how I became interested in that. I told you that one of the smartest thing we did is we started looking at long-lived animals, and I thought maybe instead of looking only at progeria or early onset of aging, maybe we should look why centenarians live so long. The Kahn family, they all were born between 1910 and 1920 in New York. It's the 4 children of 2 parents. And what was incredible about them, everybody reached the age of 102. So the little sister died at 102. Her brothers and sister were shocked when she died. They just couldn't believe it. And they went on to live to 110, 107, and 109. And it shows you both the familial aspects of those people and really how rare they are. Helen celebrated 95 years of 2 packs of cigarette smoking. And when I asked her, none of your doctor told you to stop smoking? And she said, yeah, all 4 doctors that told me to stop smoking died. But of course, you know, if you would smoke for 95 years, you would live long life. But that's not what I'm saying here is that those guys are protected, okay? And we have lots of papers on that. They're resilient to the environment. They're smokers. They're obese. They don't drink enough alcohol. They don't do enough exercise. Only 2% are vegetarians. It's their genetics that's really helping them. So the most important question for us was, do they get disease and then they die with the disease 30 years later? Or are they healthier later? Is there link between health span and lifespan? And this is the answer. We published more data on that quite recently, but you see that in control, they start dying and they start having disease, and when they're 80, 10% don't have any other disease, any one of those diseases here. The centenarians are going here to the right, and there's a 20, 30 years difference between the appearance of diseases in centenarians than in control, and our centenarians, more than 20% of them have nothing. Okay, they're 100 years old and have no disease. So we have to understand that we as a human species has a potential probably of 115 years. We die at 80. There's a lot of space for us to go before we even talk about we can do better. But at least they're low-hanging fruit that we should use now because we have this potential as species to get there. And another important thing, or maybe let me go back, it's not only that they stay healthier, they also have a contraction of morbidity. In other words, they die very soon after they get the disease. So they live healthy, and die. Some of them actually, that's what happens. They just die while they don't wake up one day. And this is confirmed by the government, okay? The CDC had looked at the medical costs during the last 2 years of life, and they started to look at centenarians since 1993. It's the same data, but basically what they show that the medical cost in the last 2 years of somebody who dies over the age of 100 is third of that who dies at between age 60 and 70. Okay, and those guys, when they were 60, they even didn't go to the doctor. It wasn't what they did back then. So it's living healthier, okay, and we have evidence that that's cost effective. Ignoring the fact that everybody wants to be healthy because that's what we're afraid of. So how do we translate those achievements into human? Well, it's easy with other diseases because you have a disease, okay, you discover that cholesterol is bad, hypertension is bad, the biotechs and pharmaceuticals are developing the drugs. The drug targeting of this disease is being sold. And the nice thing also is that there's a push to do more discoveries and get better drugs. I mean, the mechanisms to lower cholesterol are far away from being only statin, and hypertension is targeted by 3 different mechanisms, et cetera, et cetera. And so what is the problem for us? The problem for us is the FDA doesn't have something that's like aging as an indication, okay? And what does that mean? It means that if there's no indication, the healthcare provider would not pay for their clients. And if that happens, the pharmaceuticals will not develop, no matter what we show them. They would not develop better drugs, other drugs, combination of drugs, to fight aging. So this is for us the most important moment to get indication because we need the pharmaceuticals as partners now to develop those better mTOR, like Eric said, and other drugs that can target aging. Now, we'll talk a little bit about, we'll talk a lot in a few minutes about metformin because metformin targets multiple pathways of aging, and I'm not going to talk about it now. If you want later, we can talk about it. The point here is that metformin, when you fix cellular aging, lots of things are improving, and that's very it's, you know, you kind of don't know, it's confusing, okay? But a lot of things are improving because the cells are now becoming young. You just have to find how you do it. What's the primary pathway here. But basically, metformin, as you know, is generic, cheap, and safe drug. And metformin increases lifespan and health span of a variety of animals. We heard flies, nematodes, mice, rats. So for us, metformin is from the biology of aging, and probably parts of the effect on diabetes is just normalizing cellular physiology to large extent. And so we conceive, and I said, bunch of scientists like Steve and our colleagues, we conceived this TAME trial. And Steve will talk about the TAME trial. I'll just make the following points. The idea of the TAME trial is to show that multiple morbidities of aging can be targeted by metformin. By the way, we're targeting aging. Anti-aging for us are different people, a lot of them charlatans, that say, we'll give you a drug and you live forever, and if you die, nobody sues them. That's a problem for us. So when I hear anti-aging, it's like, it's not me, it's somebody else. Okay, we're the scientists. But I'm telling you, I wouldn't be involved in such a study if it wasn't for the FDA, if it wasn't to obtain new indication from the FDA. And there are other things we want it to be as a template for the pharmaceuticals. We want to deal with the nutraceutical. There are other things why we want to do this study. So we, bunch of scientists, we went to the FDA and we really wanted to talk with them. We never talked about metformin because the FDA knows everything we need to do about metformin. It's on their web. But we asked, what indication will you accept at the end of a clinical study? So we can call it aging. By the way, we all agreed not to call aging a disease. Okay, we all agreed. Neither we, not the FDA, wants to do it. I'm even not sure that it can be done legally. It might need some of those diseases to be approved by politicians and other things. But we wanted to come with something like aging. And so we started communicating with the FDA, and you know how it is. We first submitted our proposal, and they had questions, and then we met. And I'll give you just a flavor of the questions. So one of them had to do with distinguishing between targeting aging and preventing aging and targeting the disease, and by that preventing aging. In other words, it depicts here, can delaying disease actually delay aging? In other words, if you give statins, okay, will it delay really aging? Or is delaying aging delay the disease? This distinction, they really wanted to hear more. It's kind of where I started the lecture. And we showed them, for example, this slide when we said, look, in young, there is an interaction between gene and environment, and we all know that. But when you're old, there is this thing that's called aging, and aging has a biology, and we have to consider that, and we have to target that, and not the specific, cholesterol or blood pressure of the young. So we basically told them, like I showed you, that aging is a major risk for disease. The biology of aging is left the station there. You can find, you'll just do biology of aging in the PubMed and you'll get 21,000 papers, a lot of them of how aging is being delayed. And humans' health span and lifespan are linked through biology and genetics, and we talked about that. Now, wouldn't any intervention that has already been shown effective in preventing, treating age-related disease, disability, treat aging de facto? And I wanted to make this point that we made to them is when you look at statins, then you see that statins decrease cardiovascular disease death by 20%. Okay, but statins doesn't change other causes of death. It's very specific for cardiovascular disease. And by the way, there are studies with statins that shows that overall death doesn't change because statin also cause diabetes and have other problems. So statin is very much cardiovascular, and not only that, even if you decrease cardiovascular disease by 20%, what happens to the other 80%? What's the biology behind them? It's not statin, it's aging. It's not cholesterol, it's aging. So those are the kind of points that we went through, and Steve will tell us what indication we got, but basically our geroscience hypothesis is that when you started having acceleration of the incidence of comorbidity, and we can target it somewhere and flatten the line, we'll get a huge benefit. So I want to leave you with those thoughts. Aging can be targeted. I said how to die young at a very old age, but a practical approach for me is how to spend 80 years in becoming biologically 60. And I think that's what we've done in the lab. TAME is a tool to prove it. TAME will lead to an indication that is similar to aging. TAME success will lead to development of better drugs and their combination. I also want to say that we're talking about aging, but I'll tell you, people with HIV are 10 years older than biologically equivalent age. They suffer 10 years earlier from age-related diseases. People who got treatment for cancer, whether it's radiation or chemotherapy, they're a decade older than they should be. So they need help. If we want to go to Mars, we need protection. And this protection will come from what we find about aging, because otherwise you'll get cancer when you get there or on the way back. So when we're talking about an aging, it's not the old people only we're worried. We're worried of everyone and people who have age-accelerated diseases. And also the last point is that we actually figured out this longevity dividend, and you saw it in the film at the end. It will save $7 trillion. If we can extend healthy lifespan by 2-3 years, modest, it will affect the economy by $7 trillion by the year 2050. We really have to do it. That's the only reasonable way to do it. We have the biology, we show that, so we should move on with that. It's urgent. So thank you, and I'm going to ask Steve to tell you more about the TAME and how we plan, the thoughts behind it and how we plan to do that.